Once we've created curves, we can also edit them. So let's take a look at how to edit curves. Now I have this object that I created before, and it's basically just a line attached to a lathe. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn off the lathe so we can see the line. And I'm going to go over here into my modify panel, and I'm going to add in a modifier. I'm going to add in an edit spline. Now this allows me to edit the spline as well as add to the spline. So let's take a look at some of the ways that we can edit this spline. Probably the easier way to take a look at this is to go into an orthographic viewport, and in this case I'm going to go into the front viewport. Now when we edit a spline, it's actually very similar to editing a polygon. We have a number of sub-objects. We have what's called vertices, which we played with. We also have segments. Now a segment is really just the space between the vertice. And then we have splines, and that's really the whole thing. Now one thing is, notice how this spline has a yellow vertex at the very beginning here. And that's basically the first vertex. Now, depending upon how you model, this can be important. So it will determine the direction of a surface. It can determine how normals are calculated on the object. So if we want, we can reverse this by selecting the spline and hitting reverse. Now notice how the yellow goes to the opposite end of this spline. So reverse basically just flips the first vertex. Now if we want, we can go to segment, and we can just select segments and move them. So this is just a way to model. Or we can go to vertices, which we've kind of played with before. So we can actually take vertices and reshape the spline. Now another thing we can do is we can actually add to this spline. And this is very similar to the way that we can add elements into a polygon. So if I scroll down here, you'll see that I have two options here. One is create line, which allows me to just start drawing. Or I also have attach, which allows me to attach an existing line. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line. Now the first vertex of this line is determined here, whether it's linear, smooth, Bezier, or Bezier corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this a linear and set it right here at the origin. And then I can pull that out. And remember, if I hit shift, it'll turn it into a straight line. And then if I left click and drag, again, it will turn it into a Bezier. And I can make a lid here. And if I want to make a handle for this, I can do that. So I can come up here and do something like that. And once I hit enter, that ceases creation. And now I have a second object in here. So I actually have now two splines within this one edit spline. And notice how this one also has its own first vertex. So each spline within this edit spline will have its own vertex. Now if I go back out to my perspective view, you can see how if I turn on that lathe, we'll go ahead and show me this. Now notice how the normals are a little bit off on this. So if I go back into this spline here, select them both, and reverse them, that will reverse the normals as well. So if I go back into my lathe, notice how it now shows up as an object. So as you can see, reverse is very important for determining the direction of the surface. So when I reversed those splines, the surface flipped inside out, and I got this result. So as you can see, the edit spline modifier allows you to work with vertices, segments, and splines. You can have multiple splines within one edit spline, and those splines can either be drawn or attached, just like we do with polygons.